What is up, Fanatics? It's 8 p.m. Mountain Time on a Tuesday, and you know what that means. It's time for another episode of Home Theater Fanatics Live. And today, this is about as home theater as you can get, right? Sometimes we'll kind of tangent off and we'll have a guest that's not so much home theater, but this one is all about home theater. And I'm really super excited to introduce everybody to Chris Kane from AudioControl. And if you guys don't know, AudioControl is making some killer AVR and pre-pro devices for home theaters, and they are super exciting. So, Chris, welcome to the show, man. How you doing?
Thanks, Giles. Good to have you. And we're glad to be here. So
you're like, this is my show now.
I know. I'm still digesting the lead in there, the 60-second countdown. That was so dramatic, and I'm like, wow, this is cool.
Super dramatic, right? I mean,
because
if there's one thing I am, it's dramatic.
I feel
Yeah, so let's talk a little bit about you and let everybody know who AudioControl is. So first, I guess everybody knows you work for AudioControl. It's on your shirt, right? You're branded. Okay. But yeah, tell us who you are, Chris, so people kind of get a feel for who they're looking at on the screen today.
Sure. Yeah. No, I've been with AudioControl now for almost 30 years.
Just a little while.
Just a little bit, waiting for another gig to come together and stuff like that. So, but no, I lived in Southern California for a big chunk of my life, and ran a stereo store down there. And at some point, we decided to move on from Southern California. Those of you that live in Southern California might know why, but it was just time to do something different. And there was this little company up here in Seattle called AudioControl. I met the owner of the company and flew up here in '92 and 4th of July, and it rained, of course. That's, the Seattle
way
of life. Exactly. So there was no hiding, what was going on here. And I ended up coming to work here. And I started life as managing the just consumer sales, and then I did sales and international, and then sales and marketing. So I've been, surrounded by a really good group of folks. And, it's a neat company because, we're not only we were a designer and a manufacturer of audio products, and I think that's really what's always stood out to me as something that's kind of unique. It's neat to kind of get your hands around something, or even more so be involved in the design of a particular piece of product or whatnot. And sometimes it takes 2 or 3 years for that to come to fruition, but it's kind of neat to say, hey, I was there when that happened at the beginning, or to be able to talk to people and get feedback from people and bring that back to the engineering team and the manufacturing team here. So
that's awesome. I can, you're talking about like the 92 time frame, back then with AudioControl. And I remember you guys from back then too. Now at that time I had no home theater kind of anything, right? And gosh, I mean, there wasn't that much stuff back then anyway. But one thing that did exist that I was all about was car audio, right? So, I remember the good old AudioControl from way back then. And you guys still carry that tradition on today, right? So it's not just home theater devices, but let's maybe this is a chance to kind of talk about the portfolio and all the stuff that AudioControl does build and sell.
No, definitely. And you're right. I mean, I guess a lot of our fans out there know us from different places. Predated me. We started in the '70s. Actually, a guy named Greg Mackey. Started AudioControl.
Did he make Mackie Audio later?
He did.
The same guy? Okay.
Yeah, same guy. Oh, same guy. He and a bunch of, one of the things that attracted me about Seattle, obviously, there's a lot of music up here. And the Pearl Jams and Heart and all those bands came out of here. A lot of musicians up here. And Greg had a fair amount of friends, when he was starting up. And there wasn't a lot of audio companies back in the '70s. If you wanted hi-fi. And so you go to a hi-fi store, they called hi-fi at the time, and you buy some speakers, and they would sound a certain way inside the store. And then you would take them home, and maybe you put them in your corners, or you put them on your hardwood floors, or you would do whatever. And lo and behold, they didn't sound the same as when they were in the store.
Yeah, strange that.
Yeah, exactly. So people would come back to the store and say, hey, what's wrong with the speaker? And that's kind of where equalization, kind of our early products came into play, where we had the ability to kind of fine-tune the sound, and it gave the end user the ability. And some of these, your listeners may be familiar with our 520, which was a little 5 bands of VQ with a couple pieces of wood bolted onto the side. It looked like a Heathkit product, if I'm dating myself a little bit.
Oh,
And
that's funny. Right on.
yeah, people dug on that. And then we started coming out with products with flashing lights and RTAs built into them. So it gave you the ability to actually.
I would love to have like a vintage style, and I don't know if this product exists. RTA, so a big one, right, with a whole bunch of bands, so I can just watch the lights dance.
Oh, it's intoxicating. It's intoxicating, definitely.
I need one of those. I don't know why, but I just do. I think that'd be awesome.
We have a few around here, and people, you're right, just stare at the lights, and and while it's there to kind of help balance sound, it is kind of funny to watch people. You would watch people close their eyes and tune it, and then you would invariably end up with a smiley face curve, like the Fletcher Munson curve.
Oh yeah. This. Psh, psh.
Yeah, exactly. Which
they're like more bass. Oh, treble, mid range. No.
Yeah, exactly. Bass was the thing. Well, we had early enthusiasts, and this kind of segues a little bit into the car audio, who would take some of those home products, and then in the 80s they started shoving those in the trunks of their cars.
Right.
And they would modify them and shove them underneath the dashboard, or more so in the trunk and stuff like that. And that's when car audio really started to take off, and people started doing sound off contests and things like that. And they said, hey, I need to have an equalizer. So they used some of our home audio, rack mount, shove it under the dashboard or the back. And then eventually we said, well, let's take those features and let's put them into a form factor that probably you're a lot more familiar with now, the little metal boxes.
Little metal boxes.
Yeah, they can now bolt under a seat or under a dash or something like that. So that's kind of where our car audio side of life took off. And that continued on into sound quality, and we got into SPL types of events over time. And now actually we do a lot of business and put a lot of our engineering into OEM integration.
Okay.
If you bought a new car in the last 5 or 10 years, you probably know it's got a lot of the stuff in the dash that you like already, but it may not sound the way you want, lacking in bass and speakers and stuff like that. So we have a bunch of devices that kind of help, integrate on that side of things. So that's what kind of launched us in the car audio side of things. And whereas car had its own little group of enthusiasts and shops you would go to, home started having its own little group of enthusiasts and such. And then when I started with the company, I remember traveling around, and it's kind of interesting, the fact that you're home theater fanatics. So I would go around and you'd go to an audio shop, or maybe a shop that sold TVs. And back then it was Proton or Curtis.
Oh, sure, yeah.
The audio guys didn't sell TVs. It was sacrilegious. We don't do that kind of stuff. And it took a few years, and we actually had a product called the Video Sound Tracker that had a little 1/8-inch jack on it.
I've never even heard of that before.
Yeah, it was an old circa 1987, and it was a little processor that would basically would let you take the headphone jack from your TV, you plug it in the Video Sound Tracker, and then it had RCA, so you could plug it into your receiver and your preamp, and that was home theater. And I remember coming back from a trip, and it was like this epiphany where I'm like, oh my gosh, people are plugging TVs in their stereos finally, and
it's happening. Oh my
exactly.
God.
Which was mono. It started mono, and then from mono it became 2-channel, and then that synthesized 3, 4, and 5 as AC3s and all that kind of stuff came around. And then you fast forward to what we're doing now with 16 channels and built-in DSP and room correction and calibration and stuff. So yeah, we've gone off in a lot of different directions. And along the way, we also make mics and analyzers and stuff that we sell to the pro world. But that's
right
cool.
on. Yeah. So I'm going to pull this. I've got a screen share going. So let me see if I can show this. So,
there it is.
Yeah. So you've got car, home, and pro, right? So let's start on the car side of the house. Let me get in the screen. There we go. Bam. All right. Cars. Let's see. A factory upgrade. All right. So are these boxes that kind of like sit in between the head unit of the car, and then you can add on more easily amplification and that kind of stuff? Is that what these are doing?
Exactly. Yep. They have either speaker level inputs. So, a lot of these car radios now actually, or factory car amplifiers are crossed over inside the amplifier. So coming out of the amp, as opposed to full range, it could be a high, mid, and a low.
Right. Yep.
Or it could be a front and rear. So our processors take those various signals, bring them inside the processor, and then we sum them together so you can get a nice, clean, full-range signal. And then you can use that full-range signal to kind of decide, hey, I want to have a nice 3-way system in the front with subs, or if I want front and rear in subs and things like that. So a lot of flexibility there. And then different levels of equalization depending on how crazy your speaker locations are, and what you want to do from the system there.
Yeah, no, that's cool. This DQ61, it's got lots of spinny dials on it, and I like that.
Exactly.
Yeah,
And
the lights don't matter so much because it's hidden, but I like the spinny dials.
flashing lights. We always joke we should make a product that will just have flashing RTA lights. We'll stick it on the dash, and it'll be RCA in, RCA out, and we'll just loop the wires together, and people will buy it. So
people will buy it totally. Exactly. All right, so I mean, and you cover the gambit here. You got DSP, you got amplification. Oh, and this is the one. If people don't know, this I think is the audio control product of all time, the Epicenter, right?
Absolutely.
So this is the one. I mean, and I've never actually had one before, but I've always wondered, why doesn't Audio Control make an Epicenter for home theater?
Well, coming full circle, we did. Actually, we
what?
Yeah, the original, prior to the Epicenter, this is where I'm dating myself again. We had a product called the Phased Couple Activator. Great name.
Okay, yeah, no, that's so bad.
Yeah, I know.
So bad.
It's a subharmonic synthesizer that looks at the upper octaves and recreates the lower octaves, which is what the Epicenter does. And it needs to see a full range signal. So it was great for 2-channel systems where you had pre-out main ends, or you'd run from your processor into that. Did an amazing job. We sold tons of them. And that was one of the products that people started shoving in the trunks of their cars.
Sure.
Said, well, let's come out with a car version. So in 87, 88, we came out with the Epicenter. And everybody went, what the heck is that? And so, I mean, it's one of those crazy products. It's almost a 35-year life. I think we've just crossed over selling 1 million of these things.
Oh my God, that's awesome.
Oh yeah, it's a neat, and it's so much fun too, because you can put it in and you can just listen to your system. It's got a cool little knob, and you create more bottom end and things like that. Home theater got a little more complicated because you have the effects channels and the sub channels coming out. So for the Epicenter to do its magic in there, it takes a lot more wiring and things like that.
Or you just embed the technology in your pre-pro. Just saying, if you make a pre-pro, you just embed it in your. So here's the thing, and this is something that I've thought about a little bit, but there is this whole subculture, and it's really funny because you can call it a subculture because it is a culture about subwoofers, with this that use this tool called bass management, all right, and it's not, adjusting the levels of your subwoofers, but it's actually looking at your source content. So folks will take a movie, right? And they'll look at this movie and the different versions, maybe it's the Blu-ray or the 4K edition or whatever. They'll analyze the audio track, and you can identify the filters that were applied to that track before it was pressed to disc, right? So what you'll see is a lot of times they'll put like a 24 decibel crossover starting at 20 hertz and knock out all the subsonics, right? So the information is there, but it just rolls off. And maybe it's a 6 decibel roll off. If it's different for different things. But folks look at that and then they re-engineer what that needs to look like. So they'll say, okay, to eliminate the impact of this roll-off crossover, these are the settings that you put into your EQ, right, to kind of bring that back up to flat. So obviously they can't create the audio information, but they can boost it back up to some semblance of what it would have been if there hadn't been a filter put on it, right? So you get that. So it's kind of doing what the Epicenter does, kind of, right? And that's like a big thing. And so for folks to do that today, they take like the subwoofer out channel. So that's the sum of the LFE plus all of the crossed over bass content out of the other speakers, and they run that through like a mini DSP 2x4 HD or something like that from mini DSP, and that's got the capability to put in both all of your output channel EQ, but you can also do an input side EQ, so you can have both running at the same time. So what runs all the time is the output side EQ to level, get all your subs leveled out and do all your tuning and that kind of stuff. But for each movie, you can on the input side load in that bass management setting for the movie you're going to watch, and then bam, you just earthquaked your movie, right? Your Epicenter actioned it up, right? So I'm just saying, if you guys want to take this market by storm, you've got the two pieces. You've got your pre-pro, you've got the Epicenter. Just put them together in the processor. How cool would that be?
I wrote that down, Charles. I'll give you credit.
So for everybody's that's watching, they're like, "Oh God, here goes Giles again,
Yeah, exactly.
this crazy ideas,and he's got a manufacturer listening." Oh my God, no, but that's kind of cool. But the epicenter. Let me pull this back up. But this was the thing. I mean, back in the day with car audio. I mean, if you were cool, this is what you had. It probably even cost more back then than it does now. I'm sure it did.
It's the same price. It's the same price as it was. Yeah.
Right on. That's awesome. So the price has come down in relative.
Yeah, exactly. I don't know what else.
That's cool. But let's flip over to the home stuff, because this is this is what this channel is all about. And you guys make, and I've seen these at Cedia, great AVRs as well as pre-pros. And a little bit later in the episode, I really want to dig into the whole AVR versus pre-pro and kind of answer that question. But for now, I think it's cool that we can just call out that those exist. You also have power amplifiers, sub amplifiers, but then you guys are also pretty big in multi-zone home audio, right? Including stuff like 70-volt kind of stuff, multi-zone amplifiers. Can you talk a little bit about that and let folks kind of know, what you got going on there?
Definitely. Yeah, no, I mean, distributed audio, which, is another category that's kind of evolved. It started out as kind of, I think in a lot of customers' minds or people's minds, as background music. But nowadays with speaker systems, people are getting better and better architectural speakers in their house, and less of the box speakers. Maybe you have a box or enclosure speaker in certain places, like the main listening rooms. But the rest of your house, you want to have that same experience. And it went from one main, let's face it used to be one main listening area. Now the main area could be the theater. But then people want to listen to it in their office. They want to listen to it in their bedrooms, outdoor. My gosh, the outdoor audio business continues to grow, where people will like to go outside and spend this, depending on where you live, of course. Seattle outdoors, winter,
sure, yeah,
not so much, but Florida, California, places like that. And it's really fun to take your music outside above and beyond what you got inside there. And so we have a whole line of amplifiers that fit into that. And what's unique about it is, a lot of times when it comes to that whole house thing, people make, they would use power just enough to get by, 20 watts, 30 watts, something like that. Mm-hmm. So you get what you get. It's kind of like buying a Yugo and expecting it to go, 100 miles an hour or whatever. So
you get what you pay for.
Yeah, exactly. So they go, gosh, it doesn't sound very good. It sounds like an elevator. Yeah, okay. You use small speakers, you use small amplifiers. Guess what you got? Well, now there's so many cool architectural speakers out there, and in-ceiling speakers, invisible speakers. Like I said, the outdoor stuff, wherever you want them. But the better ones need more power, and that's really kind of, people go, "What's your secret sauce?" Well, yeah, we have DSP and we run cool and stuff like that. But we put a lot of power. Most of our distributed audio amps are 100 watts per channel, 8 ohms, and even higher into 4 ohms. Which, do I need that much power? Not necessarily. But as everybody knows, as a listener, the extra power you have is like the extra headroom. It gives you more warmth. They don't sound compressed. It doesn't sound nasally. And all of a sudden, wow, even at low volumes or modest volumes, it sounds pretty good. And that's, I tell you, it's a fast-growing part of our business, because people, home theater, let's face it, how many theaters can you put in your house? 5. No more than 5. Maybe 6.
Yeah, that's my goal. One day.
Yeah, exactly. 6, exactly.
Yeah, I want to pick my 5 favorite manufacturers and be like, okay, here's this room. Right, here's the theater for this other one.
Yeah, exactly.
That would be ridiculously awesome.
You gotta have the bedroom one, the outside one. So I had a customer that called me, and he was, we launched our new processors, and he was very excited to get his new one. Wanted to get pushed to the front of the line, all that kind of stuff. And he goes, "Well, I have 3 other theaters that have your product in it, so I want to get this one." I'm like, "Well,
oh my God,
you got 3 that are already working. Let's let somebody else get one first." So
that's super cool.
Oh, major enthusiast. I love that stuff. So
that's awesome. Yeah, I guess just like in cars, there's no replacement for displacement or wattage.
Oh yeah, exactly. You can never have too much.
That's cool. Well, let's take a second here. I want to call out some of the folks that are out in the crowd today. Hi-Fi Haven says, "Hey everybody, he was first on. He beat everybody today. So
welcome.
Everyone's challenge is to beat Hi-Fi Haven on the show next week." So you got to do it. And then walking the walk of shame is AA, because he missed last week. And Shame on you, man. But we're glad that you're here this week. Welcome, man. So he says AudioControl has some cool products. Never heard them, but excited. I have heard them, and they're really good. They're really good. And I think it was was it at CDA 19 that you guys introduced your pre-pro line? Is that when that came out, or did it come out before then? And that's just when they hit my radar first.
I think the new line, the X series.
The X series, yeah, that's what I'm talking.
We introduced those in 2019, and then we said, hey, let's wait till there's a pandemic and then start shipping them. So yeah,
oh yeah, totally.
It was. I can remember the days hand in hand, unfortunately. But so that was. But yeah, But prior to that, I mean, the generation we had before was a traditional 12-channel platform versus the 16-channel, and then we had some basic 5.1 stuff going back a few years. So we've been doing home theater in various shapes for 10 years or so. Home theater amplifiers, and actually we did some home theater EQ going back even further. So
right on. And so today, it looks like the product portfolio is the Maestro X9 and X7 on the pre-pro, the processor side of the house, and then the Concert XR8, 6, and 4 on the receiver or the AVR side of the house. Am I translating that correctly?
You did an amazing job. Right on.
Okay, right on. Love it. All right, so a few more people here. Let's see who we got here. The anonymous Facebook user loves AudioControl. We do too. And he says that, or she, because I do have at least 3 female viewers, X9's live on every site. Right on.
Cool.
Audio Architects is up in the house, and this is Mike. For folks that don't know, everybody go check his channel out. Super awesome. He learned everything he knows from the master. I'm sure he's loving that right now. And then another faceless Facebook user, Dirac.
Oh, a Dirac fan. All right.
Yeah, dude, I like Dirac too. It does rock, especially with all the new subwoofer business that they got going over the last couple of years. And Jim
Sparandio. Oh my
God. Yeah. I think this might be Jim's first time on the show. You apparently, Chris, you bring all the boys to the yard.
Oh my God. Jim and I worked together a long time ago. So Jim's a good man. Good
That's awesome. Thanks for joining up, Jim. Go subscribe. Come on. You got to do it. The whole bunch of other folks. I can't get hit everybody. Kevin S. Kevin Sorkin from the fame of GSG Audio in Southern California. If you like subwoofers, this guy has got them in spades. And Michael Christ, will you be able to hear the sound? I'm sure we can. I don't know. Maybe.
I can hold my mic up to the
calibration tools rock. 100%
yeah.
Agreed. And Hi-Fi Haven, I think he was looking at those processors and AVRs, and he likes the front panel on those. I think they're really cool too. James Dressel, maybe. Yeah. He wants an Epicenter. I think this might be might be his first time here with us. So welcome, James. Glad to have you on the show with us. Mm-hmm. Dan Black, another new person here with us. He just jumped in. And Dan, you have not missed the processor talk. We are going to have a long conversation about processors at about the 40-minute mark of the show. So make sure you hang out for that because it's coming. James, not going to try your last name, but hey, man.
Yeah.
glad to have you on. H Cinema is here with us. So lots of folks on the show with us today. And, I'm glad you're all here because, I really can't say enough about AudioControl and their brand. I mean, this is, it's a mix for me because it has 2 components to it. One, it's got that feeling of nostalgia, right? Meaning that this, you're not like a flash in the pan new kind of company that's just here for a little while and then you're gone. You've been around for a while. And, my journey through audio and hi-fi has, at different times touched on AudioControl over the years. And now that, my focus is really on home theater, you guys are like really kind of all in punching with the big boys, right? So last year is what I call the year of the 16-channel processor. And, there were a handful of folks that kind of jumped into that arena. You had the folks that have been doing it for a while, the Storm Audios and the Trinovs and those folks. But then, you guys are in there mixing it up now. You got Emotiva in there. Monolith jumped into the market. Accurus is in there. I love their stuff. Their Act 4 and their Muse is good. Man, I got to compare those one day, you guys versus them, because you're like in my heart, I love those products. I mean, they're the ones that kind of move me. But I'm really happy that you guys jumped in with those pre-pros, because that's next level. I mean, from my point of view. So let's dig into we got a trash talker in here, right? James, he's all like, is AudioControl a rebranded Arkham? I don't know. I don't know. And then somebody says, I bought an Anthem. Yay, good. But I think this is a legit question here. Are you guys partnered with Harman? Because I haven't heard anything from Harman. I wouldn't think that you guys are partnered with Harman, but maybe somewhere, somehow.
No, I mean there's a certain number of companies out there that do HDMI development, and that's what I think keeps everybody connected and monitoring and stuff like that. So we work with some partners out there that obviously work with other companies out there too, to kind of keep everybody connected and doing those things. I mean, self-development of some of those technologies, kind of like making your own Dolby chip or whatever.
Well, it's like making on Dirac, right?
Oh yeah.
I mean, it's the same kind of thing. Yeah. No, and then it's like if you think about some of your competitors that had some, pretty significant issues around their HDMI 2.1 stuff, and they're sourcing their HDMI chipsets from companies that a lot of folks source those chipsets from. So, I think from that point of view, there's a lot of crossover in the back end of the system.
No pun intended, right?
Yeah, no. I didn't try, but man, look at me. I'm getting good at this, y'all.
I mean, we're chefs. I think we look, that's our engineering team here and stuff like that, where, we have some things that we do from scratch, stuff circuit boards, burn end, software development, things like that. There's other things. It's like transistors. Transistors used to be lots of little parts and pieces, and at some point, a transistor compresses technology into a single component, and that starts to happen more and more and more. Our guys work with the various suppliers out there to bring it all together, and then we do the assembly here, we do the testing here, and of course we look at the feature set too at the same time, saying what do customers want, and we take those and kind of put them all in the same box, and add an amplification section we're doing, or something that we find is unique from an audio controls perspective, and away we go.
That's cool. And I've been set straight. Jim set me straight. He's like, I've been here. He's like, don't represent otherwise. He's all like, I've been here. Okay, so I'm supposed to ask you about Anan. I don't know what that means, but I'm
that's one of the partner suppliers out there that a lot of us work with. So I think that's what he's asking. So
right on. That's cool. That's cool. Now, not only is there car audio and home theater, but you guys also have a pro business, right? And this is something that I personally know nothing about. And I don't know that I've ever clicked on this tab before, but I'm going to click on it right now for the first time ever. And I have no idea what's going to be in here. All right. So, okay. So is this, it looks like it's all about DSP and that kind of stuff. Well, so you got to.
Yeah, this is, one of the products that's kind of walked alongside of our products. When you get into equalization, which is measurement and correction,
right?
Real-time analyzers, and right back to the flashing lights that you mentioned before. An RTA, kind of like a prism takes a beam of light and breaks it into the colors. An RTA is a microphone. The microphone basically measures pressure at different frequencies, and it takes that pressure and it'll show you, for instance, in an octave or third octave or whatever spacing. And we had a product called the SA3050, which was the cool flashing light. I had one in my conference room here, but it's in the other room. We've taken that technology the last few years, and now we're utilizing the power of a computer and an iPad and things like that. So we now have interface boxes, which is what the DMRTA is.
Oh, I got you. Right on. So
if you look at it, it's like you see there, it's a preamp. So you got microphone inputs, you've got balanced inputs, unbalanced inputs, all sorts of stuff there. And you take that and you plug that into your laptop, and there's software in your laptop, and you can measure SPL, you can measure frequency response, you can measure delay times. And for the car guys, there's actually a little oscilloscope in there, and you can measure, a lot of different things. And they're all good for, speaker setup or calibration,
sure,
and stuff like that. And that rolls in, and then we have a bunch of different microphones that allow you to interface there.
That's cool. So this looks like a more robust version of, kind of the software folks will download for free and drop on their laptops, and and hack through that stuff at home. So that's cool. I didn't know you guys were doing that. That's pretty awesome. I want to check that out one of these days. Okay.
And we do have mics, for instance. People I've seen people go to calibrate. They pick up their phone and they're calibrating, and you're like,
Oh no.
No. I mean, the software in the phones and things like that is powerful, but you got to have a microphone interface. And we have microphones that actually plug into your phone through the lightning jack and things like that, or through an XLR, depending what you have. So, but yeah, there's a whole family of those guys.
Yeah, that's cool. I like this. Josephon C550H instrumentation microphone. That's what I want, something called an instrumentation microphone. I think that sounds cool. That's awesome. All right. So let's see. I don't think anybody else has jumped in. So at this point, we're going to move on. Well, the one thing I forgot to talk about before we move on to Content Corner is, I was thinking about this the other day, and we talked about this just a little bit before the episode is, but how do people get into the ecosystem with you guys? So if they wanted to buy in and join the family, so to speak, where can they find your products? How do they join the family?
Well, things like the microphones and such, you actually can buy those just directly off the website if you want to. I mean, that's usually a calibration tool, so you don't have a lot of dealers and people that support those or stock those or whatever. And we have a few internet places like Crutchfield and stuff that will sell those. When you get into the full-blown home theater products, I mean, a lot of our interface these days is through the custom installers or the CEDIA channel. Which is where I think you've seen us at, Giles. And
absolutely,
that's an area that's been, that year when we introduced the X series, we had, I think, 8 or 9 different vendors, Dyne Audio and Origin Acoustic guys, that all had audio control processors and amplifiers in their booths. So that's kind of where we drew from there. We have a dealer locator on our website, so we can kind of point you towards, a dealer for you. But, a lot of these guys, being upfront, are integrator type of dealers. So sometimes you may connect with a dealer who may also, hopefully will also want to provide calibration services via DIRAC. They may want to help you with your automation system, things of that nature. So if you're looking for something like one of our amplifiers, like one of the theater amplifiers or the Rialto or Bijou's, then they can probably walk you through that channel too. But if you look at our dealer locator, and we sell, all over the U.S., I think I have, 28 international distributors also. So
cool.
We've got fair amount of contacts and stuff that are out there. And if you need to, pick up the phone and call us. Human beings answer our phone most of the time. We don't really have a lot of touch this, dial that, that kind of stuff. So we got a really good team of people here. Great customer service, just a lot of real passionate folks.
That's awesome. Yeah. And if, any of you viewers out there, if you just lost and you really want to get hooked up with somebody and you just, are having a hard time, just reach out to me and I'll help bridge that divide as well. And make sure you get to somebody that can get you to the right spot, because if you're interested in this stuff, I want to make sure that you can get access to it, because I love it. And are you guys going to be at CEDIA this year by any chance?
We will. Yeah.
Awesome.
We've got a great booth right where the 2 main aisles intersect.
Awesome.
In Indianapolis, which is where Jim Sperandi is from. So
nice. Yeah. That's cool. Anything new coming? Any secrets? Anything you can tell us about?
Probably a little early in the game.
When it's not early in the game, make sure you let me know so I can help break the news for you. I love new stuff. Right on. Okay.
We need to give people reasons to come see us.
Absolutely. Now though, let me find my little thingy here, my little button, because we are going to move over, and it's time for Content Corner. Now, let's take a break and stroll down to a cozy little place I like to call Content Corner. This is where we talk about all the content that we love to consume. And today, we're going to talk about some movies. The old ones. Should I leave the music in the background? I don't know. What do you think?
It was cool, yeah.
Oh, everybody's quiet. Why is everybody? I can't hear anything.
Okay.
Can you hear me? Okay.
I hear you.
Now? Oh, okay. There we go.
Okay.
Yeah, I pushed the wrong button. I watched 3 movies last week, and you know what's funny about that is, I do so much home theater content that I don't have time to watch movies anymore. But I finally watched A Quiet Place. Well, almost all of it. right? So A Quiet Place is interesting because it was a demo reel in just about everybody's Cedia demo, and anywhere you go, they'll play a scene from A Quiet Place, right? And there's like great atmos and huge bass and all that kind of stuff. But I had never watched it, and with the next movie coming out or just came out in the theater, I felt that it was finally time. But I have to tell you, it was not easy for me to get through that movie because I don't really get into the horror scary. Oh, there's so much tension built up, and something's gonna happen, right? Like, have you seen this one yet?
No, I haven't.
All right, so I don't want to spoil it too much, but there are these monsters that will attack you if you make a sound, right? And the way that people don't get killed is they just stop making sounds. They don't really talk. They learn sign language. They put sand on the ground and walk with sand. Like, I mean, it's something like if you drop something on the floor and it made a sound, the monsters would come looking for you. But they set up all this stuff. Like, there's this family and the wife is pregnant, right? So how's that going to work, right? How can you keep a baby quiet, right? And there's this one scene where you have the mother and she's walking up these stairs and she's got like this bundle of clothes and like a sheet hangs down and it snags on a nail and in the stairs, and it pulls this nail up and makes it point upward, and they just show that on the screen, and you just know somebody's going to step on this thing and they're going to scream. And then I'm just like, my chest gets tight and I'm all like, oh, the stress. It's horrible, right? But anyway, so I finally went back and dug into that. But the two movies that I really want to mention today, and these were picks by my wife, and we watched these with the kids because she wants to educate them a little bit more in the ideas around finance, creativity, entrepreneurship, and then all technical acumen and that kind of stuff. So we watched The Founder, which is about McDonald's Corporation, right? So the two guys who created the first McDonald's, and then this other dude that comes in and steals it from them and just totally screws them over and treats them horribly, but turns it into this humongous international juggernaut of a company. And then the other I watched was called The Boy Who Harnessed the Wind. And this is a story set in Africa, and I forget the country, but they're going through a famine and they don't have any food, and it's dry and they can't plant. And he's a young kid, like in junior high school or high school, something like that. And he figures out how to create a wind-powered pump for irrigation. So kind of a very moving movie, and I really enjoyed that. So for folks out there looking for something interesting to watch that's kind of off the beaten path, it's not a big Marvel movie, it's not a big bang up, blow 'em up movie, but The Boy Who Harnessed the Wind is kind of interesting. It's it's a story of triumph and all that kind of touchy feely good stuff. Chris, anything from your point of view, anything new that you've watched or heard or read, or games you've played, anything out there that you would call out that folks might want to check out? I know I'm putting you on the spot here, but if there's something you want to throw out there, this would be the time.
No, there is. Right now is a little bit of it's interesting with content and stuff like that. There's a lot of shows of things. And my son and I were kind of in an action mode these days. So I know a lot of the traditional Marvel, DC kind of stuff. We've been kind of working our way through the Avengers side of stuff, and so there's nothing probably particularly new. But I got to say, it's kind of cool to go back and rewatch some of. I just rewatched a bunch of the John Wick stuff.
Oh, good, classic.
I know. Which it obviously comes across as a lot of shooting, which it is.
Oh, which is great.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, it's totally fine.
The build up to the scenes, in terms of of when he goes into a quiet mode, or like that scene where they're starting the LP playing inside the safe, I guess, basically before the scene builds up. Some of those kind of things are pretty cool. I watched actually over the weekend. I watched the Bohemian Rhapsody again.
That's really good.
Yeah. I liked that, and then it was interesting. I grew up listening to Queen, multiple times, and then it faded out. So it's kind of cool to see that come. And that concert scene at the end, when they're doing Live Aid. they don't compress that. It's stretched out for I think 15 minutes or whatever, and it's a perfect example of wow, you know what, you just kind of get fired up and drawn into it, and especially if you're a fan. I'm an old rock and roll fan, so a lot of that kind of stuff kind of draws you in. So I'm kind of looking forward to it.
Sounded good too.
Oh yeah,
sounded really good.
That was kind of the demo I think we used just before, you know, some of our last shows kind of got put on hold and stuff like that. So I'm kind of looking forward to the studios releasing a lot of the stuff that's in the can. I hear there's a new Matrix coming out this fall. You know, there's a Top Gun thing they're talking about, and it's kind of interesting. You know, those kind of movies. You know, whether you go back to Fifth Element or stuff like that. You know, you watch some of those, and the audio back then was, you know, you go, oh my God, how impactful. And it was good, but now you listen to some of the movies that are coming out these days. It's like, wow, they've kind of, you know, they've taken it to a whole nother level. And then you watch an old movie that you remember is a good movie, and you listen to it, and it's really an old soundtrack, and you go, wow, you know, a good movie with mediocre sound is, you know, just a mediocre movie. So good sound, good movie, you know, kind of brings it all together.
Oh, you got to have it all together. And I agree. There are a lot of movies coming out that I'm excited for. I'm really super excited for the remake of Dune. So they're going out for another dip into the Dune universe to see if they can get it right this time or not. And I certainly hope they do, because I've read all the books, and I love the fiction and the series, and the other movies and the miniseries and all that kind of stuff were all right, but I don't think anybody has captured the essence yet. And it's very difficult to capture the essence of a book like that, because if you read the whole thing, I mean, it's an immense universe, right? And it spans thousands and thousands and thousands of years of time. But hopefully this little tiny snippet that they're going to try again at, they get this one right. It's got a great looking cast, so I'm super, super duper excited for that one. Ooh. All right. Now, this is where we're shaking stuff up at tonight. This is new. So this is a segment that we haven't had in the show before. And Chris, you're the guinea pig, man. We kind of wrap this into the previous segment in the past, but I want to call this out specifically. And every week we're going to do this. So we're going to have a tech question of the week that we pose to the guest, and that it'll be tailored to that guest's expertise. And today's tech question, Chris, this is something that comes up all the time. I get asked this question once, twice, 3 times a week. And the question is, what is the difference between an AVR and separates, meaning a pre-pro and amplifiers? And why would someone choose to go with an AVR or choose to go with a pre-pro and separates? So, amplifier and the processor. So, what are they, and why do you choose one or the other?
Definitely the $64,000 question.
And it could be $64,000 just depending on what you choose to buy.
I think it's kind of the evolution of what you're trying to do with your system. And one, obviously in a receiver, you have amplification built into it. And honestly, it's been kind of interesting as the receiver market over time has shifted. You see a lot of marketed numbers, but not really, I call it marketing watts versus engineering watts. So I think at the end of the day, whatever the silkscreen says on there sometimes may not necessarily be the same apples and apples. You got a car that goes 140 miles an hour. You got another one that has 140. One's a 4-cylinder, one's an 8-cylinder. What's going to be the differences there in the horsepower? So number one, you want to make sure you're comparing apples and apples. And, our amplifiers that we use, either whether it's in the receiver or the standalone ones, we kind of coined the phrase years ago about all channels driven, because people would say, oh, our amplifier puts out 100 watts, blah, 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 blah. You go, wait, what was all that? And it was only
2 channels.
Exactly. 2 channels into 4 ohms playing a 1K test tone. So, there's some comparisons, obviously, to be accurate. And that's why, you pick up some of the receivers these days from companies, that will stay nameless or whatever, and they weigh nothing, and you kind of go, how did they get 180 watts or whatever they call in there and stuff like that. So, whatever you choose, you want to certainly make, and I'm a little disappointed some days in some of the companies that have been out there a long, long time, receivers, is they they've got so many networks, features, and switches and stuff, which are all cool and everything, but they've kind of let the amplifier part of it slip a little bit. So
Sure.
having the horsepower is important. And secondly, I mean, when you have a power supply inside of a product, and if that power supply is driving the processor and the receiver, it has multiple functions to do. If that power supply is only focused on the amplification section, it's going to do a better job on the amplifier. So a standalone amplifier, and this is coming from a company that does both. A standalone amplifier inevitably is going to give you more power and more horsepower, and I'm going to have all that headroom. So a 200 watt amplifier, can fit inside of a chassis, and you can get one that's going to play down the low impedances and stuff, which is going to be tough to get a receiver to do that. So there's performance benefits of going with separates, because you can have a processor, and if you have a processor with its own power supply, you can inevitably have a quieter system inside the processor, and then you can have a standalone amplifier. Now, what kind of power do you need? Well, if it's a home theater in a modest sized room, 12 by 12, something like that, and you've got in-wall speakers and things like that, maybe a receiver, it's going to give you a good power level. Whatever you do is don't underpower your speakers. I think, no one,
Right.
People are always worried, I'm going to have too much power, I'm going to blow my speakers. I very rarely hear about people blowing speakers because they have too much power. They a lot of times will damage their speakers because they don't give it enough power. And then, they have an action moment, they lock onto that movie they like, and all of a sudden they want to turn it up a little bit more. And that's where headroom comes in. So do you need, like I said before, do you need a couple hundred watts? Yeah, not necessarily, but the headroom, the warmth that comes with that, the depth that comes with that, just the more musicality. But if you don't have a lot of power, you're going to have that problem. A standalone amplifier will give you that. So separates with a standalone amplifier will be able to do that. Now, if you've got speakers, as theater speakers get better and better all the time, even the in-wall systems and stuff like that, they tend to be more accurate. And more accurate speakers tend to need more power, and then you get into a larger room, you're going to need more power to fill up with that larger room, particularly as you get into the lower frequencies. When people do all these room calculations, sometimes I think they forget that, the room, especially if it's an open space and it may be feeding into other smaller rooms or it's feeding into larger ceilings, you need to compensate for all that. That's a little bit more of a subwoofer discussion, but you want to be able to have that kind of power. So you're going to ultimately get a better performance from having a separates, with a processor and amplifier. And then, there's definitely a wow factor of having, a rack of gear sitting there.
There is that.
Yeah.
So one comment I'll make is one benefit that I found moving up from a integrated unit to separates was that, one, you get the flexibility of choosing the components that you want, right? So you can pick out, okay, this is the perfect processor for me. It does what I need it to do. It's got the right number of channels for me. And in the past, if you wanted a lot of channels, your only option was to go with a processor. Now you've got 13 channel receivers now. I don't know if there's a 16 channel receiver out there that's got 16 channels of amplification in it, but I think somebody's got a 13. But if you wanted to go for a larger channel count and to go into a more sophisticated environment, you had to go with a processor. But I like being able to select, okay, here's the amplification I want. Here's the processor with the features that I want. And another thing, and I don't know if this is true to your product line or not, but in some product lines, when you go with the processor, the dedicated processor line, those become a bit more upgradable than what you see in just the straight receivers or AVRs, right? So when you have technology changes, some units, okay, you can change the HDMI board out and go from version 1.4a to 2.1 or whatever it might be. So there is some of that's out there too. And then I've also seen some processors have longer warranties than non-processors as well. And those are kind of just general blanket statements for the technologies. Anything else that we should add to that for folks that are trying to make this decision? I mean, there's the cost aspect, right? So separates are going to cost more, right? Mm-hmm. And sometimes it can be a lot more. But I think that covers it.
No, I think you hit on all the key points there. I mean, I remember, the first 5.1 system I listened to, and I thought, wow, how could this get any better? And then you heard a 7.1 system, and then you heard a 7.1.2 system. So, I would like to think, the 16 channels we have out there, and there's obviously some processors even have more channels. You go, gosh, how many more can you have before the the walls fall apart like Swiss cheese and stuff like that, from the speakers that are in them and stuff. So I think, this is kind of relative to, we're going from that, making the industry is making a slow shift from a 4K to an 8K platform. Now we need sources and displays and all the other, and content, there's
content.
Yeah, exactly.
That's the hard part.
Exactly.
It's easy to make the equipment. There's just no content.
So there's a lot of future proofing out there, much like you buy a future proofed computer and stuff like that. I definitely, if I'm looking to invest my money, sometimes I look at amplification and speakers as those ones that are pretty much going to be the stalwarts, and there may be something that comes down the road that we're not even talking, that we don't even know about, another surround format that Dolby or the new IMAX Enhanced or someone comes out with, that requires something a little different. So then in that case, the processor could be changed easier than taking out the receiver and things like that. Receivers typically are going to be for, maybe a smaller room, a little bit more restricted, depending on what you're doing, and the type of speakers you're doing. I mean, we've got our XR8. I mean, that's probably the biggest receiver that's out there. I mean, that's a 200 watt, 4 ohm stable, class H amplifier. Wow. Yeah, it's a monster of a receiver. And I think a lot of times people buy that, they might be thinking separates, but it depends also how much space they have in their racks and their equipment closets and stuff like that. And some people like to have, walls and walls, and some like to have kind of what I have here, just kind of a smaller environment too. So, but yeah, making sure whatever you get's got the horsepower from there. So
awesome. Very cool.
And by the way, we give a 5-year warranty on our receivers, our pre-pro.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah, so if we fix, it's funny, we fixed some of those products we talked about earlier, phase couple activators, C101s we made 30, 40 years ago. We get people sending those in for service every night. Or, what is this? I bought it. What do I do with it? So.
Oh, that's cool. That's cool. Well, thank you for that answer. And we have a handful of questions, I think, to run through quickly before I move into the cleanup section of the show today. But Brolic Media, what's up, man? He's like, I need more than 16 channels. What do I do? How do I stay in the audio control ecosystem? You guys got something coming? Is more than 16 on the horizon?
We're always looking,
Right on. So we'll put that one in as a feature request.
There you go.
And let me see.
How many channels?
Yeah. So it's funny because you're right. I mean, how many channels can you go for? I'm up to 13 channels in my room right now, and I'm like, do I need many more? I mean, because I'm not going to do 6 Atmos. I've got 4, and that's enough. I guess I do use like a mini DSP for subwoofer channels, so I could go discrete on all the subwoofers and then do all of the DSP stuff in the processor. So that might be useful. But yeah, I mean, at some point you get out of a piece of equipment that's realistic for 99% of the consumers out there, right? And once you're up to like a 32 channel processor, how many of those do you think sell in the United States per year?
Yeah,
20 or 30 or something. Exactly. I mean, from all brands or something like that. Yeah, you get into a little rarefied air. All right, so we are moving on, and this is the cleanup section. So this is all the new stuff that's coming up in the future for everybody. So Home Theater Fanatics upcoming projects. I'm working on a review of the Atlantic Technology 8600 series 5.1 speaker system, and these are really cool. So I put the unboxings up already on the channel. So if that's whet your appetite at all, I'll be working on that here in the immediate future. And I'm going to bring in my buddy Gabe from Echo Home Theater here in Castle Rock, Colorado, and he's going to help me do this video. So it's going to be another crossover event. And I'm excited for that. I'm also continuing to work on the Harbottle Audio M18X build. So, man, this has been an adventure because, this is it's a Baltic birch box with an 18-inch subwoofer. It's sealed, and it's quasi DIY, meaning that they send it to you. You could just use it as it is. But if you want to finish it, you have the opportunity to finish it in whatever way matches your room. So you're not paying them to do it, and you get a little bit of cost savings there. If you're going to stick it behind a screen, you just plug it in, go to town. But if you want it outside, you probably want to do something with it. And, you always have the option to blow Duratex on it or something like that, roll some paint on it. But since it's actual plywood as opposed to MDF, I decided to try and stain it. And I've never stained anything in my life before. And this has been absolutely banana crazy trying to figure out how to do this stain stuff. And, you know, so I did the pre-treatment on the wood, and then I put the stain on, and I did another of the stain, and then I started putting the top coat on. But when I put the top coat on, it ran a little bit, but where it ran at, it pulled the stain out. So it was like, well, it was lots of learning. So if you're interested in seeing the pitfalls that you can go through as you try and do this kind of work on your own, when this video comes out, I strongly recommend you watch it, because it's a learning experience for me. And hopefully by watching this, this will show you some of the things that you want to watch out for when you try and do this yourself. But I do think that in a perfect world, you can take a Baltic birch enclosure, and, you know, a lot of people will take that and buy a nice veneer and put on top of it, but you can make that look pretty darn good. So that's, you know, that's kind of exciting. And of course, in the video, I'll show you all the measurements for the M18X, and we'll talk about its performance. And a little hint there, it's an absolute beast. And, you know, I love seal subs. And this thing brings the low bass in spades. You know, I've got this thing hooked up to a bridge channel off of FP 10,000Q, and it's just, man, this thing's rocking. It rocks pretty hard. This week's video is going to be the Atlantic Technology Gatecrasher 3 set. So this is a 5.1 system, sound bar using the SCA protocol for wireless connectivity out to the satellites and the subwoofer. So if you're looking for that kind of environment, that video is going to drop as soon as I can get it posted. I've uploaded it to YouTube, and I was making a thumbnail just before we started streaming tonight. So that I might release it tonight at midnight or something crazy. But that'll be out there. So check that one out. Man, that's all I've got. Chris, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Oh, great time. Enjoyed it.
Yeah.
Great to connect with all the listeners here. Good feedback there on ideas and such. So
absolutely. And you know, if anybody wants more information about AudioControl, in the notes, I'll put down all the links so you can go check out everything that they've got going. And you know, if you want to see this thing live, you know, in living color, I would recommend checking out Cedia if you can make it over there, because they, you know, just like Chris said, they'll have a nice booth at the intersection of two of the main aisles, wherever that is. And hey, I'll be there too. So looking forward to that, and that'll be a great place to check it out. I'll cover it for everybody that can't be there though, so you can kind of see what they've got going on and live vicariously to some extent. So again, everybody, thanks so much. If you haven't yet, take a moment, like and subscribe. If you've used AudioControl in the past, or if you have any more questions, please drop those down below in the comments, and I'll do everything I can to make sure you get an answer to whatever you want to know. And if there's any other information, I'll try and point you in the right direction for that as well. So in conclusion, thanks everybody. And as always, we'll see you guys in the next video.
Thanks.